Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time to rise and shine. Tell your mother, tell your father, now is the time to decide. If you want leaders who can restore hope, place your ex by the rising sun. If you want leaders who lead with love, place your ex by the rising sun. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. On election day, vote UNC. One love, one team, one hope, one dream. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago. Everybody wins, everybody wins. Vote for peace, vote for love, vote for hope, vote for change. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago. Everybody wins, everybody wins. On election day.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, South, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web, a pleasant good day to you. Yes, it is the 24th of April. How many more days? Well, obviously, 24 from 28 will give you 4 more days. And of course, we know that victory is assured, but the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. And the eating here is that every single elector must go out and vote. And there are those who, of course, are the enemies of progress, of transformation, and would like us to remain, of course, in the decadence and in the quagmire and the turmoil and the destruction that has been brought upon us by the Rowley and the subsequently, of course, Young administration. But I want to tell you that no evil force formed against the righteous can prevail. You have to be, of course, someone, as I love to say, coming from the sun, which is not a planet, it's a star, and of course a conglomerate of gases, a very hot gas that would make it impossible for any human being to withstand, in spite of the best technologically advanced insulator that he can produce on Earth. And therefore, when we have people who, of course, are throwing a blind eye to the hardships brought on by bad and poor policy and profligation, waste, corruption, nepotism, cronyism, you wonder what kind of person can that be to know that fire burns, having not only experienced it in some instances, but have seen and therefore experienced others being burnt, and yet still walk right into it. That to me is suicidal. Thank God that the majority of Trinbagonians and the electorate in particular, on whose decision the future of Trinidad and Tobago relies, are very sane, sober, rational, and common sense people, in spite of the fact that you have a small cadre of individuals, of course, within the leadership of the PNM, will try to encourage you, something like Jim Jones, to commit suicide. We are smarter than that. And this election, the results must be so huge, so humongous, so monolithic that it will be impossible to steal. But I want to tell you that if you have the notion that the PNM can steal this election, then of course wipe it away, expunge that. Because I don't want anybody to think that because they believe that based on past records that the PNM will steal the elections, that somehow they are capable of doing this one. But let me tell you why this is impossible on this occasion. You see, the advent of Donald Trump, and the Riot Act that was read, of course, to his, talking here, his meaning, Rowley's clone, who called himself Young, and of course, a Chinese. It will be extremely risky for them to produce a Trinidad and Tobago at this time with a Donald Trump administration in place in the United States, and to hit us, of course, a Maduro, because they are waiting like a mapapi, the United States, for such an occasion. And Rowley and they, and Young as well, don't want to feel the wrath of the United States as far as the rigging and or the undermining of the electoral process in Trinidad and Tobago. So what other evidence is there to show that they are in a situation where there is and must be a level playing field as far as the conducting of the elections is concerned, via, of course, the role of the EBC. Well, when you see them, and I at one time didn't believe it, but I can tell you that I know of one person, not going to call any names, that really got a jersey and a $500 in it. A red jersey, of course. I couldn't believe it. But it occurred. I was really shocked, even though, of course, I would have heard stories like that, but I never believed it, because you see, I like proof. And once I get proof, I will, of course, respond appropriately. Of course, there are some things that you don't need proof for in order to know it exists. For example, wind and breeze and air is invisible, but it exists. And around us, the atmosphere. That may be the most what I consider to be commonplace example to show that there are some things that does not manifest itself in tangible, tactile, and visible, sensitive, of course, to the senses of the human being, but you know it is there. But this particular case, I had to have proof, and yes, I got it only today. And there are others as well. I'm going to show you it, of course, tomorrow, because I took pictures of it, where a UNC activist, I use the term activist to demonstrate loyalty and commitment to the UNC. And that person, I went up to the Self-Help Commission. I'm not going to say when, I'm not going to say who, because they may victimize others, because the idea here is not to deprive anybody of an opportunity to get what is already ours and ought to have been distributed equitably and within this sphere of appropriacy, one, and two, within the established criteria for accessing such a service from the state, because the treasury of this country belongs to all of us, and therefore we have equal access. But this government is about not a pseudo, but autocoup, where they use the state resources, our resources, including them, to remain in power. Well, today, I got another example of that auto coup scenario that the PNM is engaged in. Two grants they showed me. You see, I don't want to show you the letter as yet or the approval as yet until I write off the name of the beneficiary, because they have a way of victimizing the persons who would have done the right thing. And of course, the hypocrisy of Rowley stating that he promotes whistleblowing and whistleblowing legislation that never came. And of course, and he demonstrated that he was never interested in whistleblowing and the protection of whistleblowers, especially in circumstances where the state and therefore officials have engaged in what is called ultra-virus activities, or put another way, malfeasance in public office, malfeasance, doing something that is illegal. You see, I say so because the hypocrisy of Dr. Rowley continues to loom large and very conspicuous when, of course, Fali in Tobago, utilizing the protection of the Tobago House of Assembly, made some scurrying accusations against Rowley in his, according to Fali, Rowley's attempt at being, of course, angry and upset about the tremendous and, should I say, tumultuous licking that they got in Tobago 14-1. 14-1. Then, of course, he said that a whistleblower gave him certain information about Rowley, and here it is, Rowley was angry and threatened all kinds of things, including, of course, the only thing he didn't threaten was to close down the House of Assembly. But let's go to the line immediately. Of course, we have a caller. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yes, Mr. Lennox.
Yes.
I'm glad you come up tonight. You're coming on tomorrow night too?
Yes, man. I am here once the responsibility is mine and the opportunity presents.
Well, I look at a conference, a UNC conference this evening with Mr. Weed Mark.
Yes.
And a UNC lawyer. I can't remember his name. I think it's Lalaha or something like that.
Yeah, I got a glimpse of it, but I didn't get the contents. But go ahead.
Well, here now, is a lot of irregularities. That's a big word, you know. That's a big word. It might sound small, but that's a big word. But I will bring it down small. Plenty thieving start to take place. Right? And it ain't nice at all. It ain't looking nice at all. It started about 2 weeks ago. I started looking on at the tricks these people have up their sleeve. And the number one trick they get through with is by bringing them CARICOM observers here. You hear what it is I'm telling you?
But they do have, from today, Commonwealth observers as well.
Watch me. When I Commonwealth come, that they're making me feel good. I know about these things I tell you. Right? It's supposed to have at least 6 to 7 more organizations in this thing, and it was supposed to come long before. People talking about all of that right now on that chat that I look at with Mark and this UNC lawyer, who is calling for a commissioner inquiry if it have anything funny with the election when the election passed. They want to have that. Well, I want to ask that lawyer something. Why it is all we can't do like Guyana and call out on the international community, other organizations, all now and all before. I don't like that kind of talking. this thing real crucial. This is no thing where you have to hope and pray, you know. God don't like people where just sitting down and hoping and let me fight it. No, he like people with action. You do act, you give action, God will help you. You sit down and wait, he ain't gonna have time with you. And let me tell all you something. He sent a messenger, which was me. Many months before, it's almost 2 years now, I'm warning you about this man wouldn't want to have no election. All they come and see the trick he tried with the local election. And this voice cry in the wilderness for long, and it get blows. You see this final hour here? It's crucial. It started to get crucial 2 weeks ago with this thing, with these observers from the CARICOM, which I warned all about. And I come out and say the UNC should have asked for postponement in this election. I love geopolitics, and I watching the geopolitics, and I watching and I looking at the US, we ain't talking nothing at all. And I know when this election finish, you see that US with that Trump, I don't think they will recognize this election, you know. They don't recognize that young tiny man as no prime minister will come out and say he called election, you know. Them ain't gonna recognize it, you know. Nothing they ain't gonna recognize, because this whole thing to me, I tell you a long time, Lennox, it's flawed.
All right.
Young and no prime minister where they elect, right? This whole thing with this president swaying this man after, watch me, they're the sanctioned president, you know. They're the sanctioned police commissioner and everybody, you know. Whenever they just watch these things we're going on with these people where they're dealing with. I wonder if all you know for real when Wade Mac talking day to day with polling card on dead people name. I wonder if all you know dead people just vote. Dead people vote all in Guyana, you know. We CARICOM observers went and say they're observing these people election, and after when they give the final word, say that the thing was free and fair, is when Ali had to ball out and call on the international community, all on the OAS, all they didn't like to talk about. Now everybody balling OAS. It's when he called on the OAS. Who in power now? Ali in power, because the Carter Center see where the thing wasn't free and fair. Plenty dead people vote. I waiting to hear if dead people go vote by here.
All right.
Pay attention.
Yes, we paid attention. Yes, indeed. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Of course, that caller a bit skeptical, and of course, he has her doubts about, of course, the outcome. The outcome of the elections, consequence of the shenanigans of the PNM, and it's, as I was saying earlier, its attempt, of course, to undermine the electoral process, as we have seen in the past, and therefore, of course, in spite of the, let's say, attempts to build in transparency and accountability, she is still skeptical because of certain developments that was announced by the opposition in a press conference today, hosted by of course, the opposition. But of course, we wait and see, because I too know, and that is why I say that the playing field, if not totally, but certainly will be almost level. It doesn't take away the fact that they will still try to steal, but they will find other ways. And as I was saying, And as I was saying, one of the ways is that they will, of course, utilize state resources and start to give away. Well, I was telling you that I am aware of one person who has gotten $500 in a red t-shirt, and of course, because they had some other advantage, they were able, of course, to get some additional resources to furnish. Whether they will, of course, translate that sudden interest in them to a vote on Monday, that is skeptical. What I am certain of is that the activists who went and get two grants they call him for, I think he said it's totaling $25,000 to, of course, upgrade his home. Got two. I saw it. Tomorrow, of course, I will, because I have to take out the names. I don't want to expose the guy, because the process for drawing down on that opportunity, let me put it that way, or that service, is that you take the material incrementally. And I feel, knowing that the nature of the beast that we are dealing with in terms of the PNM and how they are prepared, of course, to abuse their office and their authority to engage in activities like that in order to hoodwink people into voting for them, when under normal circumstances they will not have in regard to their harsh, wicked, diabolical, barbaric, and of course very pernicious policies and programs that they have delivered to the country over the last 9 years, but attempting, of course, to sanitize themselves through a strategy, a good cop, bad cop scenario, where, of course, Young is supposed to be the good cop, but cannot erase, no matter how long it takes, cannot erase, particularly in just a month, the iniquities and the evil that, of course, the PNM has perpetrated on the people, purporting to be, of course, not only government, but, of course, managing the affairs of the country, and have, of course, rolled back, deteriorated, retrogressed Trinidad and Tobago to a point where we are talking about failed state status. We are talking about Haiti comparatively, and all of the things that none of us would have expected of a PNM administration occurred under this administration, whether it be Young, or whether it be, of course, trying to hoodwink us by saying he is correcting the wrong. So what he is saying is that for all of 9 years, he was part of that wrong, never tried to correct it. But suddenly, because he get the mantle or the responsibility of prime minister, a prime minister that is a lamed up prime minister because he is still under the influence of Rowley. Rowley has put him there, and Rowley has retained, of course, just in case anybody has to try to undermine his dictatorial decision to put Young there, contrary to the constitution of the political party called the PNM. He retains the position of political leader. So we know that that is a sham. And of course, the gentleman, he came for a UNC jersey, left it, even though it was small, left it with me, and then went on his way and came back with, of course, the two documents that would have cumulatively valued $25,000, and he showed it to me, and I took pictures of it. I want to say to you, they told us that in 1991, when, of course, they wanted to get into office after the NAR and tremendous trashing in 1986, 33-3, tremendous trashing of the PNM. In 1991, when the election cycle came around, they started to tell the people, eat them out and vote them out. Well, it has come full circle now. People, eat them out, vote them out. The money is not theirs. That's the advice that I'm giving you. It is our money that you are using. you are using or they are giving you to use. You don't believe for one moment that you are obligated to them because it came during their reign. No, you have to be conscious, because you must not forget that the sting and nettle, or put another way, that the sting in the tail, is when you would have given them your vote and leave them there where they are. Man, you will eat the bread that the devil needs for the next 5 years, and you will tell me, and you will tell yourself, what have I done? But by that time, they know it will be too late, because they have, of course, a president that they have, of course, anointed, and that the institutions of state, those that are critical but are supposed to be ostensibly independent, they are going to utilize to the hilt, because they have their mediocre friends inside of there who, of course, feel that they are obligated to the PNM and those who are in office, rather than the population of Trinidad and Tobago and the integrity of the institutions that to which they are attached, for which, of course, Trinidad and Tobago depends for providing service and good governance and equity. Let us not waste time. Let us understand the challenge that we have, and therefore, not for one moment. There are those, of course, for whom not only do we and must we feel sorry for, but of course, there are those who are extremely recalcitrant and up to, of course, because of some CPEP or URP or some other abstract priorities, such as, of course, I continue to vote to PNM because my mother did it, my father did it, and somehow they have a responsibility or some obligation to the father, not knowing full well that, of course, the PNM has metamorphosized into a criminal enterprise, as I said yesterday. In that, of course, big, massive meeting down at St. John's Hall. Let us not waste time, people. We have an obligation. So we have to, of course, cater for them. You see, rain don't fall on one man's house top when it falls. It falls on everybody within the locale that the cloud would have burst. And whether the house top would have been the top of a household that would have housed good people, bad people, and indifferent. The fact of the matter is that it would fall on everybody's house up. The point I am making by that analogy is to say, without fear of contradiction, and with a high degree of certainty, and with, of course, a massive dose of caution, that when we collectively vote in our mass for the UNC and Kamala Prasad Bisesa and the coalition of interests, we would have been performing the job of the reign. And therefore, we have to cater for those persons who are still recalcitrant, and by their conduct, if we were to follow them, we would, of course, be engaging in what might be called mass suicide. Mass suicide. Seeing, of course, the evil of the PNM. Experiencing the evil of the PNM, observing their attitude and conduct to suggest that somehow they have a right to do what they have done without, of course, any consequences. And you knowing full well that the accusations or the conduct are riddled with corruption, nepotism, misbehavior in public office, and infringement of the criminal law. The entire cabinet, for example, making a decision against our best interests when they shut down, of course, Petrotrin. When they shut down Petrotrin, because by virtue of the elimination process, that's one form of course, arriving at a logical conclusion, whether it be by inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning, as the first part of my presentation would have suggested by the process of elimination, deductive reasoning. We would have come to the point where while it would be difficult, of course, because these people are part and parcel of the society, we cannot just eliminate them, but by our majority, we are able, vast majority, we are able, of course, to influence the direction in which the country would go, and therefore on the path of righteousness, so to speak, and so those that were unrighteous or continue to be gravitating to a place where if we listen to them or we follow them, we will have a state of mass suicide, but we will take care of them at the end of the day. That is the function of the rain in this particular scenario. I'm looking, of course, I've already gotten, of course, a sight of the program on YouTube. So let me say that once again, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web, a pleasant good day to you. This is, yes, the 24th, and therefore we have, of course, 4 more days before that day of decision. And I want to tell you as well that we have to be careful because the PNM will not rest, the evil will not rest, our bane, our clear and unadulterated existential danger, or should I put it another way, that those who are an existential danger to Trinidad and Tobago are talking about the PNM and their shenanigans. But thank God, as the caller rightly said, there are international and hemispheric institutions such as the OS, but more significantly, the greatest power in the world, militarily and economically. They have initiated, of course, a trade war, a tariff war. That is how confident they are that they are going to win in every sphere of activities that they would have engaged in. And therefore, the United States will be watching and has been watching. And that is why they have been so nonchalant about Trinidad and Tobago, in spite of course, the comments of Stuart Young saying that they will do nothing to harm us, when you have to be a backside and a half and not to understand that that is hogwash talk. Because as soon as he came to tell us that in a press conference in Trinidad, they took away, of course, the OFAC license. OFAC license, that does not to me sound as though it's someone that is our friend. That does not sound to me as, of course, a cordial and harmonious relationship and intent. That sounds to me like bellicose, warlike. It sounds to me like they are sending a message that you play the fool, we will deal with you. And the only connection to the decision that was made against our interests, according to these fellas, according to Young and they don't understand, Young and they, that the Americans acted in America's best interests, because Young and Rowley acted against Trinidad and Tobago's best interests. Understand what is happening here. Again, the Americans took back the OFAC license that was given to them, expiring sometime later this year, because they were acting, the Americans were acting in their own interests. They loathe Venezuela, they loathe Maduro. He is a fugitive from American justice. He has, of course, $20 million bounty on his head, captured alive or dead, I suppose. And Trinidad and Tobago were doing handsy-pantsy business with Maduro and that administration. And it is for that reason and that reason only that they took back the OFAC license. He could live in a pile of illusion. He could live and be as optimistic to himself, but not to any one of us who can apply common sense and, of course, rationality to the situation. It cannot be that you came back to Trinidad, George Young, and told us that the Americans say they will do nothing to harm us. Let me repeat, people. George Young came back to Trinidad and told us that the Americans will do nothing to harm us because, of course, he met with, of course, the Secretary of State for the United States in Jamaica. And he came back and said to us in no uncertain terms that they will do nothing. He had a one-on-one across the desk, across the bench, across the table, whatever it is, in terms of discussion. And then he almost did not even step off the plane back here. They pulled back the OFAC license, a critical license that Rowley and all said it was historic in terms of getting dragon gas to come here or dragon oil to come to Trinidad with an arrangement with our closest neighbor, the Venezuelans. But the regime is loath. The regime has attracted the disapprobation, the disapproval of the Americans. And just in case you don't know why, once again, it doesn't matter what you think, that America flexing its muscles, that America is doing things because it has the biggest military in the world, and therefore its hegemony, meaning that its influence looms large across the globe, and in particular in this hemisphere. And that is irrelevant to us because we know we are a mere pebble or a drop of water in this sea of influence by the Americans. Rowley and they ought to have known that. For that alone, because they pursued an action that was fraught with trepidation, fright, fear, and uncertainty, trepidation, and they still pursue that. It means, therefore, they did not act in our interest, and for that we must expel the tail from government in this country. But the Americans are waiting, of course, for the democratic process to naturally take its course, because they, I'm sure, will not, of course, countenance that the population being endangered as Trinidad and Tobago has by the Rowley and PNM and Shochong and their ineptitude and anti-Trinidad and Tobago's interests by going and talking with, and of course even sanitizing and recognizing Maduro as the legal president there. By even going to his previous, of course, inauguration, sending an ambassador there. Trinidad did that. The Americans are aware. But what is the Americans concerned about? And why Rowley and the PNM ought to have known that they are playing with fire. 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 Maybe fire could also mean fire the tail. But in this case, I'm talking about, of course, a position that is inimical to Trinidad and Tobago's interests. And they ought to have known that. And if it is they pursue that course of interest or that course of action on our behalf, and they have failed miserably because they failed, of course, to look at the rapids and the fjords and the waterfalls and the bumps that would have been in the way, and did a reckless analysis of the situation, then they ought to be summarily fired. What they're waiting on? But of course, I know that according to the Lee, and I think somebody else was talking about the bam bam palpitating, all of them, because they know they have done wrong. But wrong not in the total context of their acting against Trinidad and Tobago's best interests by associating with Venezuela the way that they have, but the utilizing of the resources of the country and the way that they would have made decisions, including, of course, recusals in the hundreds by members of the cabinet. This entire cabinet ought to be put in jail. You know what I say? I say this entire cabinet is supposed to be put in jail. You cannot have so much recusals in a cabinet and then the Prime Minister, the man who is in charge of cabinet meetings, telling us that that is par for the course, that all you have to do if a matter comes up that you maybe compromise, or that you have an interest, or you have a conflict of interest, that all you do, you walk out the door before the decision is made and let the rest of them make the decision as if we are fools. It does not operate like that. In other words, Rowley and they are trying to tell us that a decision that may be a potential conflict of interest, that the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, sitting as a cabinet, have to make a decision on, suddenly drop from the sky. Yes, some kind of epiphany. It drop from the sky, drop on the table of the cabinet, and they have to now contemplate or consider the information that dropped from the sky. You have to be a backside not to understand that it cannot and does not work so in your own life. In your own life, and you want to make a decision with your wife or your children or your family, before a final decision is made, particularly where other members must make an input, there must be prior discussions. And then they come together in order to say what the ultimate decision would be in terms of moving forward with whatever project or whatever initiative. Well, it's the same way with the cabinet. These men will have different, and women will have their different homes, they'll have their different ministries, and they will have their different opportunities to gather. And more so, utilizing the technology, they could use the telephone and do a simple round robin before they go into the cabinet. The cabinet is merely a formalized way of saying that the government have officially acting on our behalf, and they made a decision to go forward with whatever project and or initiative or whatever was being considered at the time. But Rowley and they will tell you that all the person had to do now, or who would have had a potential conflict of interest, when they meet in cabinet, that person just has to walk out the door. And we are so damn gullible, they believe, that we could accept that hogwash, that nonsense. That attempt, of course, at chicanery is an attempt, because none of us could believe. And if you do, then of course I am sorry, but I have to say that you have a paucity of common sense. Paucity of common sense. It's a paucity of common sense. Are you saying that the issue dropped suddenly from the ceiling, where the cabinet has met, and they just have to consider there? No, there would have been run-up, there would have been a precursor, there would have been preludes, there would have been a pre-talk and pre-conversations, so that when they meet in cabinet merely formalizes it. But of course, the charade of walking out. But they know, all of them knew very well that, of course, that person that walked out still have a connection and is a beneficiary, whatever it is, of the particular decision that would have ultimately been made by the cabinet sitting as a cabinet. Come on, you cannot be so gullible. But I trust that this piece of edification for some will give some kind of substance if you have not yet decided that Trinidad and Tobago is a sea of yellow. That, of course, when Kamala and the UNC and the coalition of interests would have, of course, win, everybody wins. Because you see, it has to also, you have to also consider antecedent or history. And as I said last night at the St. John's Hall, the evidence does not equate. The evidence does not equate with the propaganda and old talk that the PNM would have leveled against the UNC in terms of corruption, nepotism, and cronyism, which of course I detailed to some extent in my presentation last night. Let's go to the line. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yes, good night once again.
Yes.
Well, Lennox people are calling you tonight.
Well, of
What
course.
happened to them tonight?
Well, of course, you know, I have learned, listen, I've learned that when you do a live, one person, two persons, but when it is in the system, then of course per person will go at their convenience, and then you see it start to build and so on. So I have been accustomed to that. The longest distance begin with a single step. So that is the direction in which I prefer to philosophize.
Yeah, I say they would have come out hot tonight.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. They probably getting difficulty to find and whether or not I would be on tonight because I wasn't on last night. So all of those factors.
Yeah,
I
what
have
I'm saying, they would have. I say no, that come out hot because you know they have to tell you how good you talk last night. I called back to tell you that. I forget to congratulate you.
Yes,
you was the best last night.
I've been getting whole day.
It needs to have about 6 more people talking, so it's only power was coming out of you last night, you know.
Oh yes. I agree with you.
It was powerful.
I agree with you.
So,
Yes.
I call back for that. And I call back to talk a little bit again about the geopolitics. People always feel that we is such this big sovereign country, you know, and this is our right and our law, and the U.S. can't tell us anything. Well, they're going to see now with this geopolitics we're playing off here, with this gang we have inside of here. We're dealing with them other gang, the next door, and other places like the Cubans and the Nicaraguans. They will hear Marco.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Just what they're saying is, Lennox,
yes.
You hear about any ambassador for the U.S. here in Trinidad?
Yeah, not yet, but they'll be here.
Not yet. That is a dangerous sign, you know.
Yes.
You hear what it is I'm telling you? Let me tell you something. They closed down the embassy. The American embassy closed off in Grenada, you know. And then today, I hear they're closing off about 6 in some African countries. They mentioned the African countries, but I can't remember them because I didn't take it in too much. So, I guess you're understanding me, it could go further. Imagine the U.S. embassy closed off in Grenada, and we don't have an ambassador up to now.
Yeah.
Also, the U.S. aid that they used to give in some of these African countries where they close off the embassy, they will not be receiving any more U.S. aid. As you know, they lock it off all in the Caribbean here.
Yes.
And they say they're locking it off for 3 months. And they're going to observe and well maybe see which countries they're going to give back the aid to. Well, I tell you, people watching all kind of things.
USAID, that tremendous
but
pressure.
you see, that poor people will suffer more. And we have to pay attention to that.
Yes.
And God forbid these people get back in power. You hear? It's trouble, you know, because you see that Chinese man, he going and follow the bigger gang and them, where they does hold secrets from one another, and they does do wrong things. Wrongly say they do wrong things. You see that brotherhood, where people can't understand up to now that they really have a brotherhood, that Chinese man is going to follow them. All that sweet talk they giving them.
All right. Don't forget, we have another caller trying to get in there.
Nice. Let me hear them. Let's
All right,
hear
okay,
them.
right.
I want
Thank
to
you,
hear
thank
them.
you for giving way. Thank you for giving way. Yes, indeed. All right, let's hear. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yeah, good night, Doctor.
Good night to you, my friend.
Yeah, good night, Trinidad and Tobago. Good night, worldwide. Now, PNM, the writing is on the wall to see where they lose an election. Alright? So, they realize that the people, eyes open. Good? So, I was doing this all the time, but you see how they raise the salary, the Prime Minister raised the salary, and Young raise it, right? That is because the city is writing on the wall.
Right.
Alright? So them already care about Trinidad.
Well, it's obvious.
There
I
was
mean,
my-
you
my-
see that a long time ago with the policies and the recklessness with which they implement these policies, pretending, of course,
That's right.
to be in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago. But it turns out to be the
That's
opposite.
right.
Go ahead, yes.
Right. So they running the place like well, them as the boss, and we as the slaves. Alright?
Yes.
So how they raise the salary there,
Uh-huh.
it shows you
Yeah,
clearly.
it's a clear sign. It's a
that-
clear sign of how reckless. And I'm going to show you how caring, on the other hand, the UNC has been, because not only have they resisted any increases during their term, but there's another basic and a very, what I consider the poignant example of how they are concerned about Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But go ahead, when you're finished, I will then elaborate.
Yeah, that's right. So when they raise their salary that high, right? It's common sense. Them don't care about nobody.
Yeah.
Them do that because them realize the people eyes open, so most likely they will lose the election. So them fixing the business.
Yeah.
It's common sense, Common sense make book, right? So them realize they will lose the election, so they fix the business. So when them out of office, every month, them collecting 800,000. Them fix the business.
Even though they're out of office,
Right.
the state minding them still.
Huh?
I say, even though they're out of office, the state, we, the treasury, minding them still.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And that is after the say 4%, right, for the public servants,
Yes.
right? They only sending home everybody. Like them is God. You understand?
Yeah.
Well, here what I telling Trinidad and Tobago here now. There's the time for we to send them home. You understand? Because them only come out when you're supposed to be fixing the country business, right? Petrotrin, they were supposed to fix that. They wasn't supposed to close it because the people and them the right in America or wherever they right and ask for the advice. The advice the people give them, that don't have to fix, that don't have to close. You could fix it, right? Then close it. So where you write the people for in the first place, right? So them as far as I see it, right?
Yeah.
They come out to mash up. They come out to mash up Trinidad.
But
right?
yeah,
And Trinidad and Tobago.
their conduct, you see, an ounce of action is better than a pound of talk. They give you plenty talk about it. They were the first. Imagine, and maybe, and I would want your comment on this. Imagine the current buffoon, or should I say neophytic prime minister, because he seems to be in a perpetual state of neophytism, meaning that he just come young, he didn't know anything. Imagine saying that the last 9 years they took to see what was happening, and then the rest of it was to feel their way out. You could comprehend that. After, of course, they boasted and say and hoodwink us and gaslight us and said that according to Rowley then that they are the best experience, so they have the best team, and therefore to take Trinidad and Tobago forward. And of course the UNC would have done an injustice to the population, and they are prepared to come in to do justice. And in fact, the statement that was made, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it will capture the essence of what he was saying when he said that on the 8th of September, remember that in 2015, if of course you find yourself in the same situation, you will be doing yourself an injustice. That is what he said, in addition, of course, to doing more with less. All of that he told us. But go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, well, that is a joke what them talking.
Well, we know now it's a joke, but then people took him seriously. But then we realized that he's a consummate joker, a blight, and a curse, and of course a misogynic and a very, 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 what I consider to be obnoxious individual. You finished?
No, listen.
Yes.
Doctor.
Yes.
Doctor. Well, I'll get a little lost along the way.
All right.
At the end of the day, right? They said, right?
Yes.
That the 9 years there was gain experience or something. So.
Yeah, the 9 years, yeah. I mean, what an asinine statement. My 10-year-old son could make up a better story than that. That these big men who say they went to university. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah. But they say the last 9 years there was learning and get. We want positive people.
Yes.
Because when you was campaigning, when there was campaigning, they never tell the people that they want experience.
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
So,
That's what I just said, yeah?
So,
yeah.
Right? If you want experience, tell the people you want to win the election to get experience. It's simple.
They know that if they say that,
you understand?
nobody taking them on. That's why. It was
that's just an excuse that's just an excuse for them doing nothing and trying to mash up the place.
Yeah.
Because I telling you that is why I see it.
Yeah.
From what I see, them come out to mash up Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, my friend.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they realize they cannot do it. Right? So he fixed Rowley and that one fix the business when they come out of office, them business fix.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes,
you
my
know how
friend.
much Chiran. Let me tell Trinidad and Tobago something.
Go ahead.
Right? You know how much Chiran life. Yeah? That money what them add on to the salary. You know how much Chiran like that can I say? Yeah?
Yes. And
So
if they had the right policies, how much could have been saved even in those circumstances?
PNM, then the followers of PNM, they're stupid. You understand? All right, my brother.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed.
And love to Trinidad and Tobago. You understand? Because it's love we're dealing with.
I hear you. Yes, man. Yes, man. People have waken up. They have been acting against Trinidad and Tobago's best interests, and therefore you could say and charge them and accuse them of treason. The highest crime any country could administer on their population. Treason is a betrayal of the state. You cannot tell me, and it's not for the first time, So the caller is right. That is an orchestrated plan. Not for the first time, but we have been, of course, not postulating, and not guessing. No, it's a deliberate plot. We have seen before where they took a measure to the parliament for the non-taxing of persons who would invest in multi-apartment building for families or family dwellings. And then we see where Imsbert has one, of course, in Woodbrook, and Rowley building one. He changed the name now, but it's the same blasted landate. We went there during the course of the last elections in the THC election and saw it, and we went beyond the security gate to take pictures just before Likoto. In fact, the road to enter the premises in Tobago, where Rowley has his landate converted to a different name now, to try, of course, to neutralize or to try to make people forget that his landate. Well, it's almost at the junction, because if you continue straight on the main road, there is a sign there that says Likoto. So his premises, or the entry to Rowley's Tobago high-rise multi-family dwelling, which they went into Parliament. They went into Parliament to get a benefit for themselves, where they pay no taxes. So I assume that property tax will not also be applicable to that building or those buildings. And therefore, it's another indicator that they were about themselves. And then, of course, the most horrendous, the most despicable, the most unconscionable act is when, of course, they accepted the increase by the so-called Independent Salary Review Commission, and utilized, of course, the cries of the judiciary to say that they will accept the recommendations, but in it, an increase of 47% of the Prime Minister's salary. And all Rowley did, stay there until he got it. And a few days after it was implemented, he passed on the same benefit to Stuart Young, the Chinese man. Pass it on. That is abuse, deliberate. And when a dog sucking egg, according to my mother, it's difficult for them to desist that kind of action or conduct. Well, Rowley and them sucking blasted egg too. And their conduct is one of fleecing the population, recklessly and brutally engaging in draconian measures for the people, rising food prices, the so-called, of course, inflation, food inflation, where prices increase exponentially. And whether you blame international circumstance, as they have been doing, the fact of the matter is that you cannot demonstrate that you are that concerned when you raise your salary and leave public servants, the employees of the government of the state, in situations where they can barely rise above poverty. That is what this government has demonstrated to all of us. and in their reckless behavior to seize power and to stay in office and to continue with that evil. And thus, of course, I have to come back to what is effectively the foreign policy of this government as it intertwined or it merged with the economic policy, because the gas and oil that we were supposed to get from Dragon also has a foreign policy component where they had to deal with the Maduro administration. And as I have indicated, the recklessness and the brutal and insensitivity of the government to the concerns of our largest and most powerful and most prolific economic neighbor are talking about the United States. Rowley and they must be charged for treason. There can be no other sanctions but treason for that kind of conduct, because they knew full well what they were dealing with. Why you think when things are not going their way or somebody says something about them, as I've indicated yesterday and in the press conference today, where of course I've been talking about Rowley and his licentious and salacious past. In other words, I was talking about his raping a school child, and he being of course a teacher at the time, and believe that there should be no consequences because they engage of course in what is called brinksmanship, take the chances to the edge, and then say, as Prime Minister, charge me and goes on to take charge and influence the various institutions that were supposed to objectively lay charges against government officials, but he would have intervened, whether it be his own involvement in the fake oil matter, whether it be the current minister, not minister, but attorney general of sorts, are talking about Camille Robinson wages and her money, whether it's Darrell Smith and utilizing state resources to settle his sexual predatorial propensity, and indeed that of Stuart Young, Al Rari, and others who, of course, either by way of manifold recusals from the cabinet on potential conflict of interest matters, or indeed getting direct state resources by renting of buildings across the country. All of that speaks to a mafia syndicate that Rowley has put together, and Young continues, of course, to carry out and carry on. Let us not waste time, but let us, of course, deal with the wider issue of Trinidad and Tobago's detriment because of the reckless conduct of Rowley and they in associated with a regime in Venezuela that is clearly a dictatorship, that is brutal, that is oppressive, that is dogmatic and inhumane, that does not recognize fundamental human rights. And the reason for the Donald Trump and the Americans' concern is that it has not been contained within the four walls, if you want to call it that, or the four boundaries, if you want to call it that, or the parameters, if you want to call it that, or the confinement, if you want to call it that, of the boundaries of Venezuela. Over 4 million Venezuelans have migrated out of Venezuela into neighboring, and it includes, of course, Trinidad and Tobago, even though there is water that separates us to get here, and therefore represents a destabilization of the Western Hemisphere, and in particular the South American continent. And Central America would, of course, be a part and parcel of that potential destabilization because of the migration of such large numbers of persons from one country with a population of 27 million people. And we are talking here, Panama, we are talking about, of course, other countries that surround Venezuela, even Guyana, Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, yes indeed, Chile, all of them have been, of course, in one way or another, and in various degrees, been affected by that migration that has been a reality out of Venezuela. And therefore, human rights violations are a big thing, but of course, the United States. And one wonders what was in Rowley and their head to associate with Venezuela when we have Guyana by serendipity or by divine intervention. We were able, of course, to get, or they were able, of course, to have the second possibly or extremely large resource of the same carbon deposits that Trinidad and Tobago wants for its factories and its, of course, operations here in Trinidad to bring in economic prosperity for our country, or continue expanding or maintaining the existing circumstance of our country. How come Rowley and they couldn't think that you should go Guyana instead? And mind you, what Rowley and they have done, in spite of all the talk, you see, somehow they have a proclivity, a propensity, an inclination, a predisposition, a predilection for evil things, for blighted things. It's as if they have a curse, because by associating with Venezuela as they have, of course, split or threatened the unanimity of CARICOM, because Venezuela, in its attempt to get or to conquer the Essequibo and that dispute, it means, therefore, that Guyana expects Trinidad and Tobago to be on their side. But what we have seen is that Trinidad and Tobago, through Rowley and they, are trying to struggle a middle line. But it can't work. That is like oil and water. It can't mix. That is why on Monday, we must put a Kamala Prasad-Bissessar UNC and, of course, coalition of interest government in place from Monday or after Monday, so we're talking Tuesday. It means, therefore, that a more sensible approach must be taken to, of course, satisfying our idle capacity in the various trains that we have, whether train 2, 3, and 4, in the, of course, creation of the utilization of natural gas for export and for earning foreign exchange. We must do so because the Kamala Prasad-Bissessar administration will have greater credentials and more receptive to the Guyanese than Rowley, having, of course, cut and undermined and scuttled the cordial and economic cooperation that both countries could have had. We having, of course, the capacity to process gas, Guyana having the capacity to produce gas. It means, therefore, there is a symbiotic relationship that could be developed for mutual benefits. But instead, we only choose Venezuela, Guyana's enemy, and it is a case of course, a case of the enemy that the Trinidad and Tobago government is associated with. They want to be a friend of mine. You know what I say? I say the enemy, as far as Guyana is concerned, the enemy that Trinidad and Tobago, the enemy of Guyana that the Trinidad and Tobago is associated with, is a friend of mine. And therefore that relationship is a toxic one. It will take Kamala Prasad Bissessa, the UNC, and of course the coalition of interest to remedy that situation and get Trinidad and Tobago back on even keel. As of course, as Kamala rightly said, what Rowley has done is of course generated a Rust Belt. I was amazed when she came up with that because it is so appropriate. A Rust Belt. You know what a Rust Belt is? A Rust Belt simply means that we have steel industries that would have functioned with iron and steel constructed, and of course those tanks that would be holding gasoline and or petroleum items, all of them have now laid to rust. Yes, rust. They're rotten. The iron form, or should I say, yeah, the iron form of rust, or the iron term for rust, rusting. So he has delivered a rust belt. The whole of Pointe-à-Pierre with only rusting iron all over the place, the oil refinery, etc. That is what she meant, a most appropriate term. When, of course, if they had played their cards properly with the United States and with our regional partner now becoming the most powerful country in CARICOM, and no doubt possibly in South America and in the Americas, Rowley and they fail to be able to take advantage of that opportunity because they are siding with Maduro, who wants to take a three-quarter of Guyana by virtue of the Essequibo. So he flies into St. Vincent, playing he Wickerson, to comfort, of course, the Guyanese, but more so to tell Venezuela, because if I was the Venezuelan president, I would say, he come to give me moral support. I will never say, I could not say that, of course, he come to look at CARICOM's interests. No. And that is the big difference, the dichotomy between Kamala Prasad Bissessa and her foreign policy imperatives than that of what we have seen and witnessed over the last 9 years with Rowley, and they're still waiting for dragon gas. You know how much time we waited for dragon gas? You know how much time they tell us that the deal is consumed? You know how much time they tell us don't worry, but of course money is being spent. I'm sure Shell and the other players are very annoyed with Trinidad and Tobago for sending them down that pit of hell, economic hell, to no return. Let's go back to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yes, Lennox, you're going good. Let me tell you something. Trump and them in business with no dragon gas, but he and them had to block this young man from getting people money.
That's
because
right.
it is extort. They are extortionists. right? They tell you that, you know what I say, you know, they what Rubio say, you know, that man does extort all these Caribbean countries, and um he does supply them with things, he does help them. And as the reports come out, they make you know that this country, Grenada, does buy gas from them. So them tail in trouble right now. All of them is a gang, and they love Rowley and Young. These observers they bring here, it gonna be pressure when the thing finish, you know. But
Yeah.
what I want to say is too, sorry, I'm talking back to front. What I want to say, they told Young, Rubio told Young to get the act together. I'm putting it in my words for
Yes,
people to
yes,
understand.
yes. I
Get
say it,
his
yes.
act together with the security of this country. Not only with the water, the security with the water, the borders and things, you know, security right through. He spoke to him concerning the Spanish gangs, the Venezuelan gang inside of here. We know the name. Calling the name is very scary because this gang is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Trump telling people that this gang, they let them out of the prisons, right? And some of them cross over the border and all of that.
Right.
Trump is telling no lie. In that prison that gang comes from, that dangerous gang where Trump telling them more dangerous than Al Qaeda and them kind of dread gang we just hear
Yes.
about. He said they're even more dangerous than them.
Right.
In that prison, right, it don't have no gate and thing, you know. You ain't cage up, you know, you're open, you're free to walk around the prison. That is dressed like if you know they're going out somewhere. You're getting everything inside of there, and it have gangs. All gang man inside of there have their gun. Right? The guards and them doesn't be inside the jail, they outside the jail. In case you jump, okay. Bam, they will execute you. Just don't jump the wall. And it have other jails better than that, where it has swimming pool and all. It having party. You could go inside and look for your husband, carry food, spend weekend. The people have carrying their children inside the jail. It have video. These are things we supposed to be teaching
Yes.
the people here in
Yeah,
Trinidad for
I
them
see
to
Trump.
know.
I see Trump loaded in that. Is it the?
Trump telling you that, and before
Yeah,
Trump even talk, I know all this. You're supposed to be showing videos for people to know what it is we have inside our here. And that young Chinese man in the conference, yeah, in the conference, when he talking about Rubio, tell him about the security of the country. Listen to him good, you know. Go back when he talk in the conference, you will hear him say too, he don't know anything about them Venezuelan gang in here. The Chinese man say that, you know, he playing notice bad, you know.
Yeah. That is a
all
play
kind of funny
from Rowley's book.
Killings taking
stupid,
place
yeah.
inside of here.
Yeah.
And people suspecting them, and you playing, you so dotish that you don't know about them people inside of here. Well, I tell you, they're going to deal with them. They're just sipping the tea, you know. They're just sipping the tea. And they're going to start to talk to this country again.
Yes.
And mind you me, if they are satisfied with that election, they're going to tell, we call it again, you know. I see all of that take place with countries, you know.
Right.
I see if with Haiti, they tell them, right, they store our government, you know that,
Yes.
together with the European Union. And that's why Haiti fighting so. They don't want no prime minister and president who is not elected.
Is a kakistocracy, a government that is being ruled by persons who are unfit to rule. But go ahead.
All this kind of thing.
Yeah,
but what I want to say is, you see where the black people alongside the UNC and they can't take it, the PNM can't take it.
Yeah.
It have danger in that too. Because if you see it have something funny in the ending up, I know all hell go break loose.
All right, my friend.
And I see in it, eh?
Yeah.
I see in it.
All right. Thank you very
So
much
we
for
have
that
to
further intervention. All right. I see my deputy political leader is here. I don't know if he wants to join us. Nathan, you have to multitask in a sense, you know what I mean, people. So let me just get that streak of the screen, and let me see. Let me get that streak of. Let me get that streak of. Why am I not getting it off? Let me see. So this right supposed to be here. All right, here you go. All right, okay, right, Bram. And again, why I'm not getting it? That streak supposed to be right. Oh, I'm not getting it at all. You have a little streak there that I was trying to get off because it's annoying. That's all I can say. Let me just get it again. Yes, let me see you. Right, okay. All right, I'm getting difficulty in getting it out, but well, can you see my friend? All right, of course, my deputy political leader is here with me, has joined me. Belated as it is, we just have about 8 more minutes. So I'll leave him to talk, but of course, I just want to get an update as to how the campaign is going, because this is about that. But I was merely talking just now to that caller with respect to the future of Trinidad and Tobago under a Kamala Prasad-Bissessa administration, and how we should treat with, of course, our external neighbors in terms of getting gas and oil, avoiding Venezuela, but Guyana is here, and therefore it deepens, of course, the CARICOM relations as a consequence of pursuing Guyana as opposed to Venezuela. But that means, what I want you to talk about is how the election is shaping up so far. I know you have been very active. You have been assigned, of course, to the COP candidate, to the UNC candidates, to the Love candidates. I know it's tough, and I know that you have some exercise tomorrow as well, and how the resource aspect of it is holding up. But go ahead, my friend.
Pleasant night. My people, coalition of interest. My next Prime Minister on the 28th. We say do not go out and work. Go and vote. Go out and vote. Do not go out and work. Right. I 4 topics I come here to touch on. I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm weary. Just counting on this 4 days. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing it. I see that tonight. Mr. My political leader, Mr. Lennox Smith, I feel you're going to eat some nice lamb and jam with some lentil peas, with a big butter stew lamb. Let me tell you something. I'm feeling energetic. See, I come here to talk. Is this Ruben? I just came from Toruba. I leave early. From the next meeting.
Okay.
Everything was exciting. They talk about gas and oil. My next comrade, Mr. Roche, will fix that on the 29th. Lennox, Lavantel East is bringing it to me. I do not know how, but when they walk up Lavantel East, my brother is excited. It's really excited. The dynamic is so great that I don't know what you put in. I don't know the energy you did, but some kind of spice, some kind of thing you put in. My brother, Lavantel East is ready.
Yeah, but I tell you something, today a senior citizen came in here, downstairs here where the studio is, and he was asking for jerseys and paraphernalia and so on. But then he made a very amazing statement. He said, listen, we already pulled down all of the PNM stickers, but guess where? In St. Barb's, and he said he wants the candidate for Laventon West, where that
Mr. Stowe.
is located.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah,
Stowe.
that's true, right? He said he wanted now, but I take up the phone one time and I call him. He said he coming up there now, because the people in that vicinity. I mean, that was a major, let's say, stopping point for Heinz. Heinz will go there and from time to time will mama guide the fellas and them who are linemen in the pavilion. You know, it has a little
Yeah, the
where
man
the
gas
fellas
station.
gamble and the next is gas station, right, and all that. Well, them fellas have decided that yellow is the code, and therefore they don't want so what has happened to the UNC, it appears that they never catered in terms of paraphernalia for that avalanche, and they therefore have run out of course, paraphernalia, jerseys, etc. And we are now feeling the brunt because 2 persons and about 4 others came in today from the hill. Laventon Hill we're talking about, you know.
Oh my
The
gosh.
hardest of them all
Oh my gosh.
to have, let's say, reject, the hardest of them all, I would expect to reject the PNM. I say so from the perspective that in spite of the fact that in 1986, Laventon East Mover did give a little fight in terms of 5,000 versus about 6,000 or 7,000 in terms of that, but the Laventon West remained solidly in support of the PNM. Now they realize that the PNM has rejected them. They have, of course, betrayed them, and so that they don't want no part of that. Let's take this call. President Knight, welcome.
That's a good night, Mr. Smith.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I just think you're doing a good job, and we looking good. You know, I just want people to open their eyes and see what is going on in our beloved country. A lot of people dying every single day, and 3 and 4 people dying different times. You
Yes,
know,
in spite of
we
the
need to open our
talk, yes, yes.
eyes, and we need to educate ourselves and our children, our neighbors, everybody about what is going on. We're not hating on nobody, you know, because they were doing a good job. We will have said so. They are not. It is not in our best interest to vote for somebody who is not doing something for us,
So right.
right? You know, they'll bribe and do all these things. Why you couldn't do these things for people in that 9 to 10 year period? Why you can do that? Why you can help them with grants? People waiting so long, some people finish fixing the house and now collecting grants. You know, the farm and the college, they're giving them $500 in good in Jersey. Why you can't give them that all the time? Some people suffering outside there. They have people who come in and they say, I eat for the day, and they say, no, hold it for the street to go that somebody eat for the day. You know what I mean? So everybody knows I'm outside, but I watch them because I want to educate myself. You understand?
So your view is that instead of $500 to vote around this time, they should have been doing that, of course, during the course of the 9 years.
Yes,
So that it
the people
becomes, of
something
course,
because people-
regularity and not, of course, a mama guy.
Of course, because right now we have people who live in board houses. They are not living in a sanitary place. We have our elderly people who have amputees and all these things
Yes.
that need help. Some of them can't move around. They don't have children. They don't have family around. You know, living in the board houses and all this. I mean, people, we could be kind to each other and help, and the country have enough resources that they can help, but they are not doing it. Why is this time, at this year, you want to buy a waka farmer who wanted a waka long time, who was struggling and needed bonds to go and do a small business? Why you can do these things? Right? Why no? You know, there'd be no big thing. The furniture and, food stuff ever so often.
Mm-hmm.
You know? No wait
Yeah.
until this time. That is stupidness.
All right.
You understand?
Yes.
And, we start to see these kind of things.
Anything
Right?
else?
So people
Anything
don't
else?
put
Because
on
we are going past, of course, our time here. Uh, but go ahead. We are prepared to listen.
so place the vote we know because the woman working for us, she is our son, grandchildren, for everybody. When she wins, everybody wins. And please share the
Beautiful.
live because we want this to go all over. Share with your friends, your enemy, everybody.
Thank
Share,
you.
like it,
All right.
subscribe to the page. So every time you're telling you will get everything. Have a blessed night.
All right.
Lovely,
Yellow
lovely,
ticket.
love.
Thank you.
Lovely.
All right. Yes, indeed. Of course, we just want to just wind up.
But don't you worry.
What you were saying in terms
I
of
just want to say,
the campaign. Yeah.
that caller was really hurt. She see that Lennox, I just come on the radio, but it's something serious. She talking about the 500 and these things. You see when we lost our track some years ago.
But it's despicable, you know, man, that you believe that you could bribe somebody for the vote in that what I consider be sleazy and underhanded and I mean
Yes, Mr.
small money way that what that could do for you. I say take it, yes, because the reason why they target you is because right they want your vote, but they see you as a fool, they see you as gullible, they see you as worth $500. Take it and vote the tail out. That we have to do for trying to insult you.
Lovely, Mr. Long. But first I want to say, last night it was a great speech. First time I heard you on a stage, my brother, my political leader of the love. The first time I heard you speak.
Yeah.
You speak vigorous. It's talk like it's a charge.
The very famous Mr. Nunez, he called me today, and he was, you know, coming from him and saying that it's a tremendous address, it's tremendous. He said that I really commend you. So I said, coming from you, sir, I think is an honor and a great accolade for a seasoned campaigner like you said. And of course, another one called in and said that you were as equal, if not better, than the seasoned campaigners that were on the stage. So referring to Richie and the others. So
Oh my
I think
gosh.
that is.
I tell you,
that's
it was
commendable.
great.
Yeah, that's
You
commendable.
was excited. You bring different dynamics
Yeah.
into the speeches.
Yeah.
And I thank you, my political leader.
Yeah, because when I glimpse the audience, I see everybody like the gawk, and you know they disbelieve. But it was the candidate, our candidate, Robert Mitchell, who said his assessment is that I had people in total attention, and he never saw that before, and he was amazed that of course people could stay at attention and looking to absorb every single verb, every single syllable that was said there in that meeting, and I thought that to me was the essence of the exercise.
That we party love will have an open speech on Saturday.
Yeah.
We need to get that speech. My political leader of love, a part of the coalition of love,
Yeah.
of interest.
Well, I expect that we're gonna say something because it's gonna be very fanatic. Because it's the winding down. I think the major exercise will be that of the political leader, to of course take us forward into the election itself, and then of course afterwards it will be another speech for victory. But certainly it is about calm. It's about making certain that we do not, of course, in any way scuttle it at the finishing line, and therefore I'm sure that she will, you know, design a final rally to accommodate and to suggest all of them, because she did in fact, of course, was speaking to everybody that in recent times as to the need to be calm, the need to be smart, the need to not to say something that would, of course, give the opponents, the PNM, because they are now fighting for their life, for their existence, and we must, of course, and I like to say, kill that ants with a sledgehammer. We need to get the sledgehammer on them and finally treat with them as they deserve. Your conclusion?
My conclusion is, as we embark on this next election on the 28th, nobody go to work. Colin Bird said, we never strike, you shouldn't to strike now. Everybody go and vote. Vote for the UNC, vote for the coalition of interest. Vote, my voice is lost it. I'm fed up.
I know you had to talk.
I'm fed up.
A lot of talking you had to give because this thing is about that.
It's us.
I remember, of course, I will close with, of course, the speech that I gave on, well, yesterday at the St. John's ambulance brigade.
Everybody's a winner. When UNC wins, everybody wins. Everybody wins. What the heck's next to the
No, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a proud member, that is, of the coalition of interests led by the UNC and Kamala Prasad Bisasa. First, I must say, we could look at people. Very important because the enemies are attempting, of course, to downplay the revolution that is Kamala Prasad Bisasa, the UNC, and that of the coalition of interests. We must be proud. We must say loudly. We must be forceful. And we must continue to say that nonsense is nonsense. And when, of course, you give us cacophonous babblings for what I consider to be logic, and the manifestation is not with the people in terms of their circumstance, we know we must tell them where to go. Go, go, go Rowley, go Young, go PNM, and give us a chance to breathe. Yes, indeed, give us a chance to breathe. But tonight, of course, very, very passionate, and I have a limited time, so I need to concise what I have to say in a way that will do justice to this august organization formulated and, of course, created by Kamala Prasad Bisasa. Very important to me. And I want to tell you, because there are those who believe that this is Johnny-come-lately and Papa party business. No. We have been here since 2007, man. We were part of the UNCA, man. Understand that. So those critics who believe that there is a pop-up something, I tell you that it could never be so. But you see me with a truckload of documents in my hand. It is merely part of my prop. I will not, and I cannot, and does not have the time, of course, to extrapolate. But what I wanted to do was to tell you, speaking directly, of course, to the Laventille community. Laventille must be part of the 39 constituencies that will vote for the UNC, Kamala Prasad Bisasa, and the coalition of interests. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We must. We must. And there are those who believe that somehow we must not make the transformation. Some look at it as transgression. Transgression of what? Or from what? How could you and dare you say that Laventille must remain in this, what I consider to be quagmire, this devilish, naked abuse and retrogression that Laventille has been subjected to over the past several years under the PNM, and therefore we say that enough is enough and we must get rid of you, and we do so next week Monday. I ain't talking 28 again. I ain't talking that again. No. Next week Monday. Decision making day. Next week Monday, man. It's just not waste time. It's just not waste time. But I want to tell you this, because this is for the media, of course, that are here and wherever they are. Because tomorrow we're having, of course, a press conference to, of course, address several issues. Because you see, when it is coming to, of course, moral and ethical standards, we cannot afford hypocrisy in high places. We cannot afford, for example, that Rowley tells us that when you are in public office, you have the highest standard of integrity, of transparency, of accountability, and then, of course, giving us some historical antecedent to suggest that somehow, when in 1962 we formed our independence and therefore our independent constitution, and then again, of course, in 1976, when, of course, we formed the Republican Constitution, that we would have come of age. But yet still we have our political leaders that would have been part and parcel of the natural, I shouldn't say natural, no, that's not the right word. I should say part and parcel of the consistency of managing the affairs of this country since 1956. And here it is today. We are seeing, of course, that organization has morphed into a criminal enterprise. Let us not waste time with that. The PNM is a criminal enterprise because one thing I would like you to evidence yourself of to prove that. One thing alone. Dr. Rowley came into the sphere of politics under a PNM banner and carriage and told us that he met a bankrupt PNM. He told us that. He gave us a figure. He told us that $5 million the PNM was owing. That is what he told us. And in 9 years' time, you're billing now a multi-million, 100 million and counting monstrosity called Balize House. That by itself tells me that that is hypocrisy in public office and that you have stolen from the people. That is blood money, man, painted in red. Blood money, blood money, blood money, blood. You see, integrity is important. Integrity is still important. And when we did the examination, after, of course, the PNM under Rowley, back in 2015, told us that the UNC thief, that Kamala is this, that Kamala is that of course, they're looking for them all over the place. Blue lights and silver bracelets. He introduced that in the political lexicon of this country. That's what he did. And then when we did the examination, and as my colleague would have said, and Master of Ceremony, that listen, we did the research, and we looked at it, and we looked at it on the basis, let me tell Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere, we looked at it on the basis of mega projects. And when we looked, and mega project in the context that the PNM has been in office for 9 years, and therefore any evidence of corruption, nepotism, cronyism of the type they spoke, we would have, of course, or they would have had abreast of it because they have all the documents and all of the information since they control government. But guess what? When we look at the velodrome, the cycling velodrome, when we look at the aquatic center, when we look at the children's hospital, we still call it that. When we look, of course, at the debate campus, and when we look, the most poignant of them all is that of the 106 schools that Rowley couldn't find, and of course, the great and still great Minister of Education, former Gopi Singh, pointed it out in the parliament of the country. Give the UNC a round of applause for being so damn honest. They cannot come with that hogwash now and regurgitating that again. They have to answer as to where they got the money from to build Balize House. And let me tell you this, Rowley is on record saying that not a contractor contracted under the PNM was engaged on that project. But let me tell you this, because I was the one had to do the research. And I want to tell you this, that, and I'm saying it on this platform, Jusamco was pouring concrete on that Balize house. Jusamco is significant to say Jusamco and identify that particular company. So not only did he say that, but when we match it with the evidence, it shows that Jusamco was pouring concrete in a big advertisement, so it's there in public for the public to see, observe, and read, and of course research. And you would see that it was pouring concrete on the foundation of that monstrosity called Balize House. There's a significant reason why I am pointing to Balize House as part of my presentation tonight. You see, it is Jusamco that got the contract to construct that piece of the highway that ultimately fell into the swamp below. It was Jusamco, of course, a member of the Junior Sami conglomerate, if you want to call it that. But very significantly, Balize House has been responsible for the decadence, the turmoil, the evil, the destruction of our young people, our homes, physical, our infrastructure, by way of neglect in Laventille and environs. That is where I'm going. And I want to tell them, tomorrow we are having, as I said, a press conference on the subject. Because you see, these fellas are hollow. I say that they are unashamedly dunce. They are unashamedly cowards. Because here it is. I have a document in front of me. I'm not going to read it. I didn't come here for that. Tomorrow in the press conference you will get it, but let me give you the essence of it. This is a pre-action protocol letter from Stuart Young, the current so-called Prime Minister, a total lame duck and a moron of exceeding proportion. And this, just the introduction, so you will have an appreciation. It comes, of course, from the chamber of Alistair Shea, Govan, and of course it says, Mr. Lennox Smith, of course, where he was before in terms of the ground report, I'm not going to mention that, but pre-action protocol letter. So it's coming from it's a legal document, and it said, Defamation of Stuart Young, published on the organization that we belong to before, on May 13, 2020. And it says, just one paragraph, I instruct Mr. Anthony Bullock, we act on behalf of the Honourables Mr. Stuart Young, MP, Minister of National Security, and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister. My client is an attorney at law, you're right. But with over 19 years of practice, he's also, and it gave us, of course, a number of things, including, of course, being in the Prime Minister's office. But the essence of this is that he said that we defamed him. We defamed him. And of course, we have another one with respect to I have to wind up now, another one with respect, of course, to Rowley himself. Rowley himself, I sent a pre-action protocol letter to him. The man never responded. And let me give you the dates. This date is the 5th of October, 2023. White, of course, he sent in pre-action protocol letter and he's taking everybody to court all over the place. And I calling him all kind of thing every night, every day, on the ground report, on corridor transformation. He would not respond at all. And of course, all of that will be revealed tomorrow at 10 o'clock at 55 George Street, where we have, of course, our information and, of course, communication center. Have a wonderful rest of the night. And let me say to you, Monday is here. Monday is here. Act as though Monday is here. And of course, when Kamala and the UNC and the coalition of interest wins, everybody, when
of course, that brings us to the end of tonight's program. Thank you very much, of course, for attending. Yes, indeed, it was an exciting time. I don't know where the words came from or the disposition, but of course it came, and as I said, people who I consider to be very expert said in no uncertain terms, you are equal to, if not better than, some of those seasoned campaigners. I think that is volume. That's the volume. Any final comment, Deputy Political Leader?
Lennox, it's sweet. It's sweet. These past next 4 days, it's sweet. Lennox, it's sweet. All I want to say.
All right, my friend. All right, my friend. Well, of course, people, we have come to the end of tonight's program. Don't forget, of course, that tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself will be, of course, at your service. And I can tell you, we will continue, of course, to do what we have to do in order to, of course, treat with the issues right up, of course, to right up. I ain't saying, as I said there, I ain't saying the 28th again. I'm saying, of course, right up until Monday. And Monday, of course, D-Day, when we will, of course, exercise all of our franchises. So, without further ado, see you tomorrow night. We'll be back on tomorrow night. And, of course, and don't forget, of course, we will be on the ground report as well. Saturday, we may not be here. Obviously, we will not be here. Or I'll try to get back on time. But don't expect me to be on. I can't be two places at the same time. So the politics will come to a close in terms of the campaigning. But of course, on Sunday, we will be, of course, having a prayer session, as well as, of course, preparing for Monday, because that will be a very long day in terms of the activities that are to take place. I am glad that the various institutions that are supposed to be sending monitors, or should I say elections observers, they are here. I understand that the Commonwealth Secretariat is here. Of course, CARICOM came in a little earlier, and of course the opposition has had meetings with them. We too will be seeking our own meetings and concerns as they develop. For example, bribing someone to vote for you is against the rules, against the law, and we certainly going to. We may not, of course, identify any particular person to get them in trouble, but certainly we want to identify the party, and of course the PNM. They seem to be so desperate, and they are awash with money as well, which of course confirms that they were of course interfering and of course pillaging the national treasury or the national piggy bank, and for that they must pay a high price, but only after the UNC, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and the coalition of interest wins that election with the results on Monday night. So come Tuesday, new government, and of course, when the coalition, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, UNC wins, everybody wins. Bye-bye. We'll see you, of course, tomorrow. Let me see if I can get some music to take us out. If not, if we get some music. Yes, we have something.
When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, now is the time.
Saturday, the biggest, baddest, boldest political party, the UNC final campaign rally is on home soil around where Savannah Aranquez. It's presentation of candidates, speeches, entertainment, and the video addressed by political leader KBB Plus.
You have had other leaders before me. You will have other leaders after me. But never, ever, when you have a leader who loves you as much as I do.
The final UNC campaign rally Saturday 3 p.m. at Aranquez Savannah. Live coverage on TV6 and all major platforms.
Everybody wins. Vote for people.
biggest, baddest, boldest political party, the UNC final campaign rally is on home soil around West Savannah Arrangements. It's presentation of candidates, speeches, entertainment, and the video dressed by political leader KBB Plus.
You have had other leaders before me. You will have other leaders after me. But never, never, ever will you have a leader. Not as much as I do.
The final UNC campaign rally Saturday 3 p.m. at around West Savannah. Live coverage on TV6 and all major platforms.